All right. Welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to talk about cedar waxwings. I'm kind of surprised that it's taken us this long to talk about cedar waxwings.
Yeah, they're a great bird.
Yeah. I feel like there was like a Illinois birding book that Amanda and I got like right when we first started getting into birding, and it had a cedar waxwing on the cover. And it's always like you see it so up close on the birding book that when we started seeing them for real, it was like so exciting. So I'm
Yes.
excited to talk more about them.
Yeah.
Yep. I think they just define elegance. I mean, their
Yeah.
plumage is unlike almost any other type of passerine bird for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. Just that I know we'll talk about, and people can look them up online if you're not familiar, but just like that very dark mask too with their eyes in it. It's something about it. It's like almost like the absence of seeing anything. I don't know. It's so striking when you see it.
Yeah.
So, and then also so I don't know much about the actual wax, wax
Yeah,
secretions or whatever.
it's
I mean,
a combination of the way the feather is made at the tips of those secondaries and the pigment that gets deposited and how it gets deposited. Um, and so it's a carotenoid pigment, again, anthoxanthin, that gets deposited. The barbs are kind of flattened, and they put enough of that in, it comes out, and the way it comes out makes it look shiny and uh, have that color, and it's shiny because of so there's no real wax in there. It's just the accumulation of that much of the pigment in the structure of the feather at the tip of those
And
secondaries that does that.
that's coming from specific types of plants that the fruit they're eating.
okay.
Very
They're
cool.
they're probably they're one of the most frugivorous plants or for birds in the U.S. Along with probably Phainopepla is the other one.
Is that is there an actual texture difference when you see like that
Yeah,
red part of the waxwing?
yeah.
Okay, because I've only seen them from binoculars, but you guys have worked with
Yeah,
specimen and seen them up
next time
close.
you come in, we'll have to show you. Yeah, you can. It is like bulbous on the base of the tail of that feather. Yeah, absolutely.
So can it be a different color based on what they're eating? Like,
No,
So that's
interesting though.
color. Yeah, go
Um,
ahead, Shannon.
I didn't know this until we started doing this research. Is that if you look, there's the characteristic red, but if you look at the tail has a yellow band. Except in some places, especially in the Northeast, in some places in the U.S., they are eating a different kind of honeysuckle, an introduced honeysuckle that has rhodozanthin in it, which is the reddish pigment. And some of those, now you see individuals that have orange.
wow.
And it's because the red is coming into into the tail feathers and turning that band orange in places where that plant is really common. So that there's no evidence of that before, I think, the 1950s when that plant was introduced. And since that plant has been introduced, now you see different colors in the tail.
It's
Which
crazy.
I did not know. But then again, we're manipulating the world so much.
Right. How cool.
This is such a beautiful bird. The feathers themselves are so silky, um, looking. And they're in part of the tree of life with silky flycatchers who also have silky looking feathers. But yeah, it's really cool. And I asked John yesterday if he knew how many we had, and he made a wildly off guess because
What was the
Way low.
guess and what was the
he
amount?
said he started at 400, and then I said no, and he goes 500, no, 600, no, 700, no. We have 2,044 that have been cataloged so far.
Wow.
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 And that's
That's a lot.
that was a lot more than I did not realize it was that many, but yeah.
So I just point out one thing. So there are three species of waxwing in the world. So there's cedar waxwing, then there's Bohemian waxwing, which is a bird that breeds somewhat further north of they must overlap with Cedar Waxwings in central Canada, and they breed into Europe. And then in Japan, there's another one. And the reason I wanted to bring up the Japanese one is that has a red band on its tail as opposed to
Oh, interesting.
to the
Yeah.
carotenoids.
It's probably related to that particular plant being native there. I didn't look up where that
Oh,
plant, where this honeysuckle was native to, but I didn't know that. And I thought, okay, this is why I love my job. You get to learn something new every day. And it's why I love this podcast, because when you go explore these species, you learn all kinds of new things. So it's super fun to do the research for these podcasts. So selfishly, to all you people who are listening, it's fun to be with friends, with Amanda and RJ, who we didn't know very well at all. Well, I didn't know them at all before we started this this podcast, and then to be reverted into a student-like mode as opposed to a professor-type mode is a lot more fun. I spend way too much of my time doing things I have no training for, whether that's managing people or worrying about budgets or dealing with fundraising and things that, I mean, you get used to it, but those things don't give you the complete like bursting where you feel like you're bursting out of your skin with the excitement of learning something new. That's why old people should spend time with young people, because young people induce that all the time, make your mind explode from the things that they teach you and that you learn with them.
awesome.
So where have you guys seen Cedar Waxwings?
So we see him a lot at the Botanic Garden, we see him, and there's
Mhm.
this one particular tree that we see them on. Do you remember where I'm talking about, Amanda? And I
Um,
wonder if it is a fruit, like a tree that has fruit on it now, because I remember we were
yeah,
like, why do they seem to like that? And I don't know, didn't think about it at the time.
yeah.
Do you remember? Is it on one of the islands, maybe, I think.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Be in the
I know.
Jap.
Yeah, I think so.
It could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Yeah, they all
Yeah.
have they
That's
have
hilarious.
red tails now that you
Yeah,
mention it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the first time we saw one, and I'll never forget it because it was so exciting. We were kayaking in the Skokie Lagoons,
Well, that's right.
and we saw one really clearly, like really closely, like in a way you could only see from a kayak. Um, and it was so exciting because it was the first time we'd seen it. And then we went back and looked at our bird book and we were like, that's that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's on the bird book that we'd never seen before. So it
Yeah.
was so cool.
I bet what you're describing up from the garden is the winter, and what you're describing from Skokie Lagoons is in the summer. And one of the fascinating things about these birds is in the summer, they switch over and start eating insects.
Oh, right.
They nest along areas with bodies of water like Skokie Lagoons, and they come down. And at that time of year, there are a lot of things emerging out of the water, a lot of insect groups, and they tend to forage in the air. They kind of sally and catch mayflies and things like that as they come out.
So
Yeah.
these
So
birds are
cool.
really important as seed dispersers too, because they're so obligate to plants. And the other thing I didn't know about them until doing research for this is that they're late breeders, and that's because they need the plant material so dramatically that that they breed later so that they can take advantage of a better berry season than you would get at the very beginning of the spring when a lot of birds would start nesting. And there was been some really interesting comparative work that's been done with other frugivores like thrushes, um, looking at even their digestive systems are really different. Because they take such advantage of such high sugar foods that they can't incorporate lipids very well into their systems, which I didn't. I also find that pretty interesting too. This whole notion of trade-offs of what you can do and what you can't do if you specialize in one thing, what that compromises you for doing other things.
Mm.
So there's
That-
another aspect of that which you guys may have come across. Go ahead, Darcy.
No, I was just going to say that I read that because they, for a period of time are eating only fruits, that actually like when brown-headed cowbirds will lay eggs in Cedar Waxwing's nests, that they can't survive off of like the fruit-only diets So they're like one of the only
Crazy.
species that a brown-headed cowbird would lay its egg in and it wouldn't be able to survive. I thought that was kind of
Do the
wild.
cowbirds
So
learn
crazy.
that? Do they learn not to? Do they even know what nest they're putting their eggs in sometimes?
We gotta. I wonder what the literature says on that. I think the answer may be a complex. In other words, there would be an obvious evolutionary significance, to understanding that if you could as a brown-headed cowbird. But I don't know that they necessarily do have that ability. That's a really
Interesting.
And they're one of
Yeah.
the species that actually looks like it's increasing in numbers over the past 20 years.
That's good.
Because as things reforest, you get more places where there are berries at the edges of these things. And people are planting more things like that, apparently. And I guess the use of pesticides is going down. And so they seem to be benefiting from that. So that's a 2026 good news story, RJ.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really
So-
positive.
So another thing about them in the non-breeding season, but I think also in the beginning of the breeding season, is that they flock up and then they're nomadic. That's a evolutionary strategy that works really well if you're looking for fruits in situations where the fruits are always going to be patchy across big geographies. And so their non-breeding range is
It's
the southern
huge.
U.S. all the way down to Costa Rica, which is
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know they go down that far south. Wow.
so, and it's really they're an amazing bird. There's not very many other birds that have a broad geographic distribution like that. But the way they're using it is actually they won't be in the same place every single season.
Yeah, and that leads to really interesting population dynamic questions. So they are eruptive. They're one of the species with the least site fidelity to where they're born, because you can't have fidelity to where you're born if the food you need is patchy and distributed all over the place. But so we don't know if there's been no studies on the genetic structure of cedar waxwings yet. So we don't really know if there are separate populations or how that whole dynamic. Well, that would be a really interesting thing to know about, but we don't know anything about that. Although we have 2,000 samples that someone could.
I was going to
get
say we
some
tend
idea.
not to study these things that we think are exchanging lots of genes.
Oh.
But we don't know how far
I know.
we don't know.
No.
So
I think we do actually a little bit, but in the sense that there's a little bit of data from banding returns that suggests that sometimes birds from the east go way far west, and I think the hypothesis is that could happen in the other direction too. So birds from central Canada or western Canada could end up wintering somewhere in the east, and again they get together in these flocks and during migration, and that's always really cool too, because when they come down and they're looking for things to feed, sometimes you can just get 40 or 50 in a single tree, which is just incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
Amanda, I
awesome.
think we saw a lot. Do you remember when we went with Scott this fall and we were out near that river? I forget where it was, but we saw kind of one or two that were kind of sailing out over this river and then kind of just sat for longer and like realized like there were, a ton. And that was definitely the
Yes.
most we'd ever seen together in a group, because I don't know, it was really exciting actually like seeing that. Yeah.
It was. I'm trying to think if it was Ryerson or Daniel Wright. I can't remember.
I think it was Ryerson. Yeah.
Ryerson? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
I
So like
was
Shannon was saying, they breed late, but they breed in the Chicago area. And again, I think there's some years where there are more around than others. And that I'm still not sure how necessarily the summer with respect to fruit actually pans out, because for the most part, there isn't much fruit in the summer. So are they going around and looking for areas with more insects emerging before they decide where to breed? Maybe that's what's going.
interesting.
And I
Yeah.
saw too that they'll kind of nest in like not groups, but like a lot of nests will be in the same area as well. So they'll kind of like, a handful of trees will have like a bunch of nests in it, which I thought that was
think
kind of interesting.
With a biology like that, isn't going to be particularly territorial. Like you don't see them chasing each other like you do with house wrens or cardinals like that. So yeah, no, I think they've once they find areas that are good, they're okay with the fact that they're good for other cedar waxwings too.
Is that because they're drunk They're easygoing.
Yeah, fun facts.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's a big party.
before we get to the fermented part of the other thing I learned about them in the Gee Whiz facts about cedar waxwings is that because they're so tied to fruits like that, that they have the capability of not being affected by these cyanide-like compounds that are toxic. So I'm not sure exactly what they do and how they're not responding to that. So that's interesting to me too, and another way in which they differ from thrushes and other things that are fairly frugivorous as well. So yeah, they are pretty cool. And then yes, Amanda, you cannot talk about cedar waxwings without going to find videos of them drunk, because they obviously can't metabolize alcohol that quickly, but and they will eat fermented fruits, and there's hilarious videos of them just looking dead laying on the ground, but they're not dead, they're drunk.
I remember when we did our episode where we interviewed Marcel, who came on, and he was talking about cedar waxwings, and I didn't know about the drunk thing. And I remember Shannon asked, Marcel was talking about cedar waxwings, and Shannon was like, "Have you seen him drunk?" And I thought she meant like Marcel was drunk, and I was like, "What an odd question." And then I was like,
do you do your bird watching drunk?
What an odd question. And then once we started talking more, I like put it together. I was like, oh.
I never thought of that. I did not mean it that way. That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcel knew, so that's what's important. He knew right away.
Like, I usually roll a J when I bird watch.
Enough of that.
Or prepare a J. What was it?
Yeah, prepare.
Prepare a J.
That was funny.
Oh my god.
So I wonder what these birds smell. I mean, I wonder how much smell is a part of their existence.
They're as Shannon was saying, I mean, they're very different from any other group of North American birds in their commitment to frugivory and what that means for the biology of the bird.
That's cool. Now, John, their commitment to, what was that word?
Frugivory.
Eating
so they
fruits.
eat fruit.
Their fruit eating. Okay.
Yeah. And they have these adaptations, like if you were talking about the mask on them. So that mask goes into a black bill, which has a gape that's about 12 millimeters wide, which is the breadth of the largest fruit that they can swallow whole, which they'll do.
Yeah, they also have an expanded like a wide digestive tract, just like with pockets in the esophagus to kind of shove the fruits that they're eating, so they digest them over time,
Cool.
which is kind of weird
So
too.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda found an article that kind of went into that. That was pretty cool. That just talked about all the different
adaptations.
Yeah. It was something from the birding club in Steamboat at the Yampa Valley Birding Club. They I emailed it to you too, so everyone can look at it later, but it's they said like a pitchfork. They have like spines on their tongue that allow them to move. They said they toss a berry up in the air, catch it in their mouth, and then to move it from the front of their mouth to the back, their tongue has these spines, so it kind of pokes the berry back. Yeah. So they are so cool, and obviously so adapted to, what is that word, John?
Frugivory. Yeah.
I'll let you say it. I still don't know what that word is.
So eating fruit is something that's really common in the tropics, where there's year-round presence of fruit. But you get up into the temperate areas, and there are these periods of time where there isn't fruit, and so obviously they're migratory. But at the same time, at other times when there's no fruit around, they'll eat insects, and so they're an incredibly well adapted bird for doing what they're doing, and it comes with a whole bunch of behaviors that make them really atypical.
Cool. I was wondering, so going back to the one that's in Japan, do we know, like, how we were saying the tail is red? Do we know, or could we ever know if that's genetic, or is it simply what they're eating?
It's genetic, but it's all modified from what they're eating, right? So it's genetic that X pigment gets deposited in X part of the body. That's developmental and genetic. Now, Could you alter that? In some species, no, because they control the deposition of, and it's not a good idea if you're supposed to be yellow to be orange or red, because if you're not recognized as the right species, it's a bad idea. But and so some deposit pigments from the food without as much alteration, and that's where you get flamingos changing their color depending on how much or what is in the krill that they're eating. But some birds they take the thing from the environment and they deposit it, but they've manipulated it to be whatever shade it's going to be when it goes in there. So you can eat a lot more of this berry and you don't get redder or you don't get yellower. But if you eat more or less shrimpy things, you will be more or less pink if you're a flamingo.
Very cool.
I think we're kind of getting close on time for this one. Is there anything else on Cedar Waxwings we want to touch on?
No, I just encourage people to go out and look at them, whether they're drunk or not. And
the people or the bird?
They look bird itself.
Both.